All right, Charlie Pellet, thank you, sir. Good to see you, and welcome to the Monday edition of Balance of Power here on Bloomberg Radio, on the satellite radio, and of course on YouTube, where you can find us each day now, starting at high noon. Search Bloomberg Global News. Simple as that. You'll find our live stream, and you're always welcome here in the studio. Coming up in our next hour, Kaylee Lyons will be along, and we'll invite our global TV audience. Until then, it's just us kids and the panel. As we look at the rules now for the big debate, we started the hour talking about the 1 month mark, right? This is it. Big month till the Republican National Convention. And big stuff. It's going to be crazy between now and then. We can just say that out loud. With the sentencing of Donald Trump coming up, his choosing of a running mate will coincide somehow with the convention from what he's saying. And of course, the big debate. Yeah, that's the 27th, week from Thursday, CNN, as opposed to, every channel in a debate run by the old-fashioned commission. We're not doing it that way this time. As I read in the New York Times, there will be no opening statements. President Biden and former President Trump will each have 2 minutes to answer questions, followed by 1 minute rebuttals and responses to the rebuttals. Red lights visible to the candidates will flash when they have 5 seconds left, and then you know what happens. The mics turn off. That's part of the deal here. Only one mic on at a time, which could eliminate some spontaneity, as I'm reading in the analysis over the weekend. Maybe that means a little less drama. And the candidates will get a breather during 2 commercial breaks. This is something else we didn't get with the commission debates. We got to sit through like Preparation H commercials here during a presidential debate, and everybody who's carrying it's going to be taking those commercials. Let's assemble the panel. Rick Davis and Jeannie Sheehan Zaino, fresh off the weekend Bloomberg Politics contributors, our signature panel, are with us right now. Rick, we've talked a lot about, and you've been involved directly in presidential debates with the commission. We've talked a lot about the reasons why we're not doing it that way. What do you think of the rules here now that they are set? Is this realistic?
Well, if you are a purist in presidential debates, especially historically, you love this format. This is going back to the 60s, Kennedy, Nixon, 2 minutes, none of this show stuff about giving speeches on the before and after. No audience and no town hall. That's even worse. So, yeah, I think this is going to elicit a completely different debate. We'll see if we like it or not. We haven't seen one like this in a long time. And yet, I think it can work. There's both contestants have said yes to the simplest format. In the past, when the commission does these, you have 80-page MOUs that govern every ounce of activity that occurs on the stage. And in this case, a summary like you just gave us is basically what these campaigns are getting into.
There you have it. Jeannie, I wondered, producer James asks a great question. We've got no audience in there. Even with the muted mics, aren't we going to hear the other candidate on the open microphone when they start yelling at each other? Is there still a chance for this to melt down, or do you think they've got this locked down the way they need to?
Oh, there is a chance that it will melt down. I think we will see Donald Trump gesticulating as the mics are turned off if he's frustrated, And Joe, I don't know why you had to go right to the Preparation H. Let's get a younger.
I'm sorry, that wasn't
in there, please.
Yeah.
I think that for Donald Trump, and you're already hearing this in the conservative circles, that they are pushing back on these rules that were just released. So I think if this goes forward, and it sounds like it will, if Donald Trump doesn't do as well as he wants, or Joe Biden, exceeds the very low expectations set for him, we are going to hear Donald Trump's team say this was a setup. I would hope that it was sort of back to the days that Rick is talking about when we could have a real full-throated policy debate, but we are in TikTok time. So I am not sure it's going to come out in the way everybody is hoping, at least policy people, and expecting. And I'm pretty sure Donald Trump doesn't want it that way.
The rules circulated by CNN, Rick, warn, quote, moderators will use all tools at their disposal to enforce timing and ensure a civilized discussion. Do they risk taking the life out of this thing?
I think they risk putting the life into it. And by that, what I mean is when you look at The moderators, Jake Tapper and Dana Bash, they're no easy pushovers for an interview, right? And they push back on fake news. They push back on people not answering a question. I think that the reality is this is the traditional moderator job, is to control the flow of facts in this. And I think that's the thing probably CNN fears the most, is that they get criticized because Donald Trump, number one, but even Joe Biden doesn't, really stick to the facts, and they basically push their talking points regardless of what relationship they have with the truth.
We talked a bit about preparation in advance of this, and it's really interesting. It's exactly what had been reported. Joe Biden is, after a little rest, going to go up to Camp David and spend the better part of a week there. Ron Klain is coming off of his job to do this, as one more time reprising his role in helping Joe Biden prepare for the debate. Donald Trump does not want to do a traditional, and I guess has never done a traditional debate preparation. He wants to kind of riff on ideas and come up with one-liners on his own. Jeannie, I wonder how that presents itself, that contrast in this very structured format. Joe Biden, it seems, is preparing for the rules at hand, where Donald Trump is preparing for the debates he was in several years ago. What do you think?
I'm not sure I believe when Donald Trump says that he is not going to prepare. His campaign this time around, they are good campaign. They are running a pretty good campaign. He has been sticking to the script as much as Donald Trump does. So I know they want to send out this idea through Stephen Miller and others that he doesn't need to prep. He'll just go and riff. But I think he is going to be prepping. And I think that he knows that he has to, because neither one of these guys has engaged in a debate with anybody for several years. I think if his team allowed him not to prep in a traditional way, that would just be a disaster for him. It's Donald Trump, so who knows? But I am very suspicious of this argument that he's not going to prep at all. And of course, Joe Biden is prepping, and he needs to.
It's really interesting. Donald Trump referred to CNN as the enemy in an interview last week, Rick. And one of his campaign managers, Chris LaCivita, said, "We have conversations," when reporters asked him about the way they prepare. And when asked who might stand in for the role of the president, he replied, quote, "Joe Biden is going to play Joe Biden," unquote. What are they missing?
Look, you have to have a candidate who's willing to be prepped for debates, and not everybody does. Not every candidate in the past has liked to stand on the stage with some quasi friend of theirs pretending to be the opponent and giving them a bunch of lines that would get under their skin, right? How many former staffers of Donald Trump have gotten under his skin, and that's why they refer to him as former staffers? So look, I mean, it's just the way he likes to do it, and he admits, publicly, that the first debate with Joe Biden and the last time they debated, he overplayed his hand. He was too domineering, and so lessons are learned along the way. These guys haven't forgotten how those first couple debates went in 2020, and so I think that it's too much, I think, to think like it's non-traditional. I've done a lot of debate prep with a lot of different candidates. Bob Dole prepped differently than George W. Bush, than George H.W. Bush, than Ronald Reagan. They all have their idiosyncrasies, and you have to cater to those idiosyncrasies, because the most important thing is keeping their attention for a period of time when you can actually import some of the strategy around what you hope to accomplish at the debate, because these are poll-tested messages that you would like the candidate to offer up to the voters who might be viewing this debate. And so you got to keep their attention long enough to get that conversation going.
Fascinating stuff here when we consider the next month. Do we all agree that the debate will be the most important thing that happens between now and a month from today, the beginning of the Republican National Convention? And I ask you that, Jeannie, knowing that Donald Trump's sentencing will be among the developments that we witness.
I'm going to say yes, but who knows in this environment? You would think that this debate with what they both have on the table here as they go into it would be the most important. That's why the Biden team was pushing for it much, much earlier than we traditionally see it. That said, so much can happen between now and the start of the Republican convention that, you're hard pressed to say it is. But in this point, yes, I think the sentencing is going to be fascinating. But as we've seen so far, at least, these decisions made in the courthouse have had very little impact on the electorate and in the polling booth. And so I'm not sure it's going to change anything unless he's sentenced to jail for a long period of time, which I don't suspect.
Producer James reminds we've got a presidential immunity ruling from the Supreme Court in this period of time as well. By the way, they just put Friday, they added Friday to the docket on opinion days. This is going to drop at any time here. Rick, if you're sketching this out, your next month as the campaign manager, is the debate the tent pole here?
Yeah, I think it has to be. It's certainly, if you get the viewership that you expect, which is 70+ million people coming in to see what these guys are doing, that's a lot of eyeballs. That's more eyeballs than watch the Supreme Court. That's more eyeballs than listen to the evening news. And so I think that this is definitely the moment for both these candidates.
It's going to be interesting to see how people receive the debate as well this time around. Jeannie, we're talking about formatting and rules, but this is going to be streamed on, HBO Max. It's going to be on TV like it would be traditionally. And you wonder how many Americans, just like they might at a primary debate, wake up the next day and just wait for Twitter to cut this whole thing up for them. We don't consume the way we used to.
That's right. And so many young people do not watch TV. I mean, they really don't.
Correct.
They stream everything. So you're right. They can, and they look at the chunks that come out afterwards. And, I think it's going to be fascinating to see if they make this 70 million target. I would be surprised by that, and good for them if they do. But you don't see numbers like that, particularly in the heat of the summer, the Olympics, and everything else going on that can distract people. Are they really going to tune in for a debate? I hope they do, but I'm not sure we know if that's going to happen yet.
Yeah. Well, that's why we're in all the places. Your students must think you're so cool, a YouTube influencer like Jeannie Shanzano, to be in the room like this. We'll have it on every platform known to man. The radio, of course, satellite radio, Bloomberg TV, the internet, the terminal. Not everyone has a terminal. In fact, no one has a terminal but Bloomberg. We're going to have, of course, our signature panel back in hour 2. No one has a signature panel in Washington either. Jeannie Shanzano and Rick Davis are all ours. Kaylee Lyons is on the way in next. It's Monday in Washington. We've got a lot to talk about with breaking news from Israel. We'll do that coming up at the top of our next hour here in a conversation with Kelly Grieco from the Stimson Center. Stay with us.